I am DM Zone. This is the Gamers Oasis. We're going to talk about the Cleric from the Dungeons & Dragons BX version. Okay guys, I'm going to talk real quickly about Clerics. Clerics are one of the four primary classes in Basic Expert Edition or the Mulve edition of the game. Later in a different video coming up, I'm going to talk about the demi-humans, which then represent classes, but they have their own progression and they have their own extra abilities because they're demi-humans. So with that being said, let me talk about Clerics. Let me get back on topic for Clerics. Clerics, yes, they can get castles. They get at 9th level, just like some of the other classes we'll get into in a minute. This is also their name level. This is when they stop rolling hit dice and they just start getting bonuses to hit points and that type of stuff. Basic Mulve edition, it goes up to 14th level, so there's 5 levels in which they're doing this. They also don't get con bonus after this point, though most people consider con to be retroactive, so if you were to do that, they get 9 hit points for all the con they would gain if they were to get that bonus con. Anyways, getting off topic. Okay, so clerics are judged in Basic Mulve, in the Basic Expert Edition, a lot based upon their actions. Are they proselytizing to people? Are they trying to convert people? Do they open churches, shrines? Are they willing to help the needy and the poor and the try and convert the wicked? Or are they going to volunteer their time? That type of stuff. My fish apparently is behind me doing crazy things. I just heard it. Anyways, so are they doing these type of things, or are they being selfish? Are they being greedy? Are they willing to heal people who may be murdered? You know, there's a classic saying in one of the books, I think it's in the basic book, where it's talking about combat and whatnot, and it says there's a hobgoblin that's tied up or something like that, bugbear's tied up, and the guy, he surrendered, and the thief wants to kill him so that we don't leave someone behind us that can go get reinforcements and then ambushes. And the cleric says, I don't know if my God will allow me to heal someone who basically murdered in this situation. In general, clerics are law-based. There are exceptions, but generally they tend to follow more towards law. Law is good in this game. Taking it like from other games where you have the 9 different squares, or you have the 5 different squares, depending on which way when you're playing on. In this version of the game, there's law, and essentially that's the good, and they represent it a little differently, and I think if you read the book you understand it. Again, that's a different video. Alright, so one of the other big things they have, one of the biggest things that makes a reason why you want to take a cleric into a dungeon is the ability to turn undead. Turn undead can be done every turn. There's a chart. It's based upon your level and what you roll. If you have a number, then that number is what you're trying to reach so you can turn. If you have just a straight T, then that means you automatically turn. Now you have to roll 2d6 to see how many hit dice you turn. If you roll that number, you roll that 2d6, it's the same thing. If there's a D, that means you destroy. Okay? So now they're just gone. So it's turn, possibly turn, or destroy. We'll get more into what the fourth one is in a second. As you get higher hit dice or higher level, then the harder it is to do those things. And it starts at the bottom and works its way up. So if you have a bunch of skeletons, you'll blow through the skeletons before you get to the zombies, before you get to the ghouls, the wights, and that type of specters, and then eventually vampires, mummies, and that type of stuff. I think the vampire and specter are the 2 hardest that you have to do, and you have to be fairly far along level-wise before you can even do that. Okay. So, if you are high level, I want to say 11th level is the lowest level you can be to do this. It'll say D, and they'll have like a plus, like a D, and they'll have like a plus sign. That plus sign means that when you turn zombie or skeletons or whatever it might be, you actually get an extra D6 of hit dice to blow through. Now I talked about this 2d6, or now this 3d6 to blow through hit dice. Let me go ahead and explain what that means. So a Skeleton is 1 hit dice. If you roll on 2d6 a 7, a very average roll, you will destroy or turn 7 skeletons. Okay? If you have 5 skeletons and a zombie, that means you do all 5 skeletons and 1 zombie. If you have 2 zombies, you're leaving a zombie because you didn't get it. If you have 6 skeletons and a zombie, that means you turn all 6 skeletons, but you don't get the zombie because you don't have enough hit dice to do it. Does that make sense? I think it does. Okay, so let me go ahead and talk a little bit about spells. Real briefly, clerics have a lot of the warding spells, they have a lot of the healing spells, they have a lot of the protection spells. They're one of the ways they can raise dead and that type of stuff. They are, of course, on the good side of things. One thing to take into consideration is magic is supposed to be finite and rare, so it therefore is more powerful. A cleric is very close to being a fighter. They have a similar progression. They can wear similar armor. They can use similar weapons. You know, they can't use spears or lances and that type of stuff, but they can use a mace, which is still a hard-hitting weapon. There is a difference between using magic swords and magic maces, because magic swords is a legitimate thing. It's not like I swing axes. It's swords. Swords are a legitimate thing. Okay, so now we're going to talk about fighters real quick. Fighters are the meat shields. They are the reason why the frontiers and the wilderness isn't as filled with monsters as it is. They are the backbone to any group or any adventure or any exploration. They are the reason why humans have developed as much as they have. They are hugely, hugely important, and they are a very simple class to play. They do what they do well, and they don't do it with any sort of frills or extra magic. The little tricks they do, which are very few, are meant to be very functional. So let me go ahead and break into a little bit more. Yes, fighters, of course, can have castles. They become barons or baronesses when they turn 9th level or they get to their name level. They're often leading armies and have men-at-arms and that type of stuff that travel with them. Whether your fighter is more of a knight, being on the lawful side, or maybe a self-serving adventurer that is only out for the XP and loot, you know, more neutral, or maybe they're a wild creature that is from the chaos, you know. All these things are basically the same type of thing. You know, they all they all can be fighters, and they can come from any background, any alignment. Okay, so they have lance combat. Lance combat is done from mounted. It happens when you move 20 feet in a straight line while mounted. Your lance strikes a target. It does double damage. It's pretty spectacular in a hit point reduced environment. So creatures in Dungeons and Dragons BX tend to have fewer hit points. Even dragons are only like 9 to like 13 hit dice or something like that, which is a D6 or a D8 or whatever it might be for that specific monster. But you get the idea. They don't have that many hit points, so doing double damage can be pretty big. They can do another trick type of thing where they can have a spear, and they can do something called a spear combat. Essentially what they do is they brace for impact. They put their foot in, just like you've seen in 13th Warrior, and when the cavalry comes charging in, if they hit, they do double damage. If there's not enough movement for either one of these two attacks, they can still attack with the spear. They just count as a spear for attacks. Again, when you brace for impact, they have to be moving 20 feet for the momentum to be able to do the double damage. Alright, so beyond that, they have pretty good saves. They have more hit points than general and other classes. And I'll get into what the demi-human portion is when I talk about demi-humans specifically, so that you can understand that portion of the character. Okay, so magic users. Magic users are the most fragile of all the different adventuring classes out there. At low levels, they basically have to be babysitted, and it takes a little bit of luck and a very cautious hand to even make it through the beginning levels. When you get higher levels and you get more spells, then you're actually able to do a lot of things, and you become one of the more powerful characters in the game. Again, you still have to be cautious, because if a giant runs up with an axe and smashes you in the face, you're done. It's a bad day. However, good luck to that giant if he doesn't kill you immediately. Also, there's some other stuff that kind of makes playing a magic user a little tougher in BX if you are struck. So the way it works is you state what you're going to do at the beginning of the game. If you state you're going to cast spells, that happens after melee at the same initiative. So if you say that I'm going to go ahead and cast spells and someone comes up and hits you, you then lose that spell. There's no roll, there's no constitution save, there's no nothing. If you are hit while attempting to cast a spell, then you lose that spell. So that's pretty rough. In the true basic and expert, they don't even really have a whole lot of other things to help you out. Some people have added some stuff to kind of help magic users get going that don't have as much meaning later on in the game. For example, like wands and familiars and that type of stuff, which I probably will be doing in my game. But those are sort of homebrew ideas or additions to make magic users more magical. Part of the flavor of BX is that magic is finite and it's rare and it's more powerful than the more common things. So while I might do those type of things, those still have limits. I wouldn't necessarily add cantrips or something of that nature unless it is purely for aesthetic and for appearance, and would be limited to maybe just, I don't even want to suggest any, but you get the general idea. They don't get castles, but they do get at 11th level, so 2 levels beyond their name level, they can get a tower. Just like the fighter and the cleric, they can get people to follow them to do this. Also, clerics can open churches. I just remembered this, sorry, a little bit of a tangent. And when they do that, they can have acolytes that work there for them and that type of stuff. So that is the arcane side to the magic you have. So you have clerics and you have magic users, both divine and arcane. They can bring people back from the dead too, but you may not like it. It is a different type of bringing them back, shall we say. Alright, more into them in a future video. Okay, lastly, but certainly not least, we have the thieves. Thieves have the least amount of XP to get basically going, but because they can get higher level all the way to the 14th level, they actually have more XP required to get to 14th level than halflings and several other things like that, which have lower level caps, if that makes sense. But of the ones that can go 14, they have the least for sure. So no, they cannot have a castle. But when they get to the name level or 9th level, they can create a hideout, which then can be turned into a thieves guild when they're a master and everything like that. And there's specific rules and that detail, that type of stuff, but they will gain followers just because they have a hideout. At 4th level, though, they can go ahead and start to read or decode ciphers and scripts and that type of stuff. So having a map that you find that you don't understand, that's written in a language you don't get, given to the rogue or the thief, they may be able to figure it out. If they can't figure out this level, they can always wait a level, and then they can try and figure it out again. I don't know where that came from. At 10th level, though, they can actually cast spells, like a magic user can cast spells from a scroll. They can't write the scrolls, but they can use a scroll and cast it from that scroll. There's a 10% chance, though, that it will backfire and something negative will happen. But that's still pretty huge, and an additional way to get magic in your group without having a magic user. Thief skills are basically they're going to be treated as sort of like magical abilities. When they say climb, they're not talking about the simple climb. There's actual climb rules. What they're talking about with the thief is that they can climb sheer surfaces, stuff where there's no place to put your toes. There's no climbing gear that's meant to do that. If you're climbing, at least some people do this, when you're climbing with climbing gear in a place where you can use normal climbing rules, you can first roll your thief ability, and if you have failed that, then you can roll your normal climb ability. They also have open locks, remove traps, pick pockets, move silent, hide in shadows, and hear noise. So there is a difference in this version of the game, which is kind of an odd thing, that they would make a distinction between hiding in shadows and moving through anything. So if you're in an open room and it's full daylight, but you're able to sneak with your move silent up behind someone, then you can get your backstab off, which of course they also have a backstab ability too. This ability allows them to strike enemies from behind in the back and then be able to do that damage. Some DMs, and I think I count myself in this group, state that if you backstab someone and it's not directly into the back area, the thorax cavity, the torso, that you're not going to get the same kind of damage. Yes, I know that you can stab someone in the hamstring and it's going to reduce their movement and be like a backstab, but in my opinion, the backstab is designed to strike organs. We're not getting into a game that's so complicated to reduce creatures' movement because you've hamstringed them or something of that nature. That would be a different game, something maybe like ICE or Rollmaster or something of that nature. ICE being Iron Crown Enterprises, not the government agency. Anyways, so yes, if you're going to backstab that giant, get onto a higher surface when you go to do it, you're good to go. So that is Thieves. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video so far. I want to tell you real quickly that coming up next I'm going to have a video on demi-humans and the relation to the classes, because each demi-human has at least one relation to a class. I'm also going to talk in more depth about, in future videos, about exploration and dungeon crawling and that type of stuff, and a little bit about downtime and about city life and those type of things in upcoming videos, so that if a person wanted to have a basic understanding of playing the game, or if they want to watch my Into the In Search of the Unknown video series I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be doing recaps of my actual game. Now this, I'm going to be recording it, but I don't know if I'm actually going to be showing the players or the characters, or I'm just going to be doing like a little storyboard to kind of describe what's going on, or if I'm going to be doing a podcast. I've kind of been floating around the idea of a podcast. So I'm not sure where we're going with this exactly. I just know I want to do a series on BX, and I want to play some of the classic Dungeons and Dragons modules that came out. I'm a huge fan of my own stuff, but I feel like part of me respecting or paying homage to where the game came from is to go back and play these old modules. So I hope you guys enjoy this and travel with me as we go through this. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day, and let's roll some dice.